I, 32 male, work as a forensic accountant for a mid-sized firm. It's a job that literally requires me to trace hidden assets and spot discrepancies people try really hard to conceal. Keep that in mind because it becomes very relevant later. I was married to wife for 5 years. The first 3 were pretty standard. We worked, paid the mortgage on a house I bought before we met, and lived comfortably. But over the last year, wife developed this crazy, insatiable appetite for things we couldn't reasonably afford. She wanted luxury vacations, wanted to lease a high-end SUV, and demanded constant renovations to a house she didn't even hold the deed to. I absorbed the costs at first just to keep the peace. Eventually, I had to tighten the budget, and her attitude completely flipped from demanding to resentful. It all blew up on a random Thursday evening. I was sitting at the kitchen island reviewing some client files. Wife walked in, carrying a small, beautifully wrapped box. She set it right on top of my paperwork with a smug, triumphant smile plastered across her face. She crossed her arms, tapped her foot, and told me to open it. I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, resting on tissue paper, was a plastic stick with 2 pink lines. "I'm pregnant," she announced. Her voice had this weird mix of authority and relief. "We're going to be a real family now. This changes everything. You can't take that regional director promotion in Chicago, and we need to start looking at upgrading the house. The baby needs a proper nursery, and I am not raising a child in this neighborhood." She was using a pregnancy to unilaterally veto my career advancement and force a massive financial commitment. She wanted to lock me down, trap me in our current city, and force my hand on our finances. I just set the plastic stick back in the box and looked at her, keeping my face completely blank. "Impossible," I said. Wife scoffed and rolled her eyes. "It's right there in front of you. I took 3 tests. It's happening, so you need to get on board and step up." I reached into my briefcase on the floor, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and dropped it on the island next to her little gift box. "Open it," I told her, mirroring her command. She frowned. Her triumphant vibe faltered for a second before she ripped open the clasp and pulled out the medical report. It had the letterhead of the highly reviewed, super expensive fertility specialist wife had aggressively nagged me to see 6 months prior. She kept complaining that my stress was the reason she wasn't getting pregnant. I watched her eyes scan the page. The medical jargon was dense, but the conclusion at the bottom was typed in bold letters. Non-obstructive azoospermia. 0 sperm count. A genetic fluke. Completely irreversible, without highly invasive, experimental extraction procedures that I had obviously never undergone. "I got the results 3 weeks ago," I told her calmly. I was processing it, but more importantly, I was waiting. "I found it highly suspicious that you suddenly stopped asking about the fertility clinic right around the exact same time you started taking weekend trips to help brother with his home renovations." Her face went totally white. The color just vanished, leaving her looking hollow, and the paper in her hands started to shake. She was realizing in real time that not only was her massive lie exposed, but the specific tool she used to try and trap me was the exact thing securing my freedom. "You got pregnant 3 months ago," I continued, stating the facts coldly. "During the 2 weeks I was in Dallas for the firm's quarterly audit. You told me you were staying at brother's house to help him paint and lay flooring.
So, tell me right now.
Whose baby is actually in there?" Wife didn't break down in tears. She didn't offer a heartfelt apology. Instead, her shock just morphed into intense, venomous entitlement. She slammed the medical report onto the counter. "You drove me to this," she yelled, her voice echoing in the kitchen. "You work constantly. You care more about your spreadsheets than your wife. Brother actually listened to me. He actually paid attention to me. And now there is a child involved. It's still your family blood. You are legally my husband, and you are going to raise this baby and provide for us." Her sheer audacity was staggering. She genuinely believed that because we were legally married, I was financially obligated to fund her infidelity and raise my own brother's child. I told her to pack a bag and get out of my house. She planted her feet.
"No.
I have established residency here. You can't legally kick me out. In fact, I'm pregnant and vulnerable. If you try to force me out, I will call the police, tell them you threaten me, and get a temporary restraining order. You'll be the one removed from the property, and I'll have exclusive use of the house. Don't test me. It was a classic dirty trick. False domestic violence allegations are a nuclear option in divorces, designed to immediately strip the other spouse of their home and gain huge legal leverage. I didn't flinch. I just pointed up at the corner of the ceiling above the cabinets, then to the corner near the hallway to the small, black domes. I installed those 3 weeks ago. Audio and video. Stored directly to a cloud server you don't have access to, I explained. Go ahead. Dial 911. Tell them I threatened you. I will gladly play the recording for the officers when they arrive, and then I will press charges for filing a false police report. She stared at the cameras, her mouth opening and closing silently. Defeated, she turned on her heel, stormed into the bedroom, and slammed the door. The next morning she was gone. But my phone buzzed with an alert from the bank. She had marched into our local branch right when it opened and attempted to drain our joint checking and savings accounts. It was exactly what I anticipated. Like I said, I secure assets for a living. The day I received my medical diagnosis and checked our phone records to see thousands of texts between her and brother, I opened a new individual account at a completely different bank. I rerouted my direct deposits and transferred exactly half of the joint funds into it, leaving behind only what was legally her half of the marital cash. She managed to withdraw a pathetic $850. 2 hours later, my front door flew open. It was brother. He marched into the living room, puffing his chest out, trying to look intimidating. What the heck is your problem? Brother demanded, getting uncomfortably close. Wife is at my place crying hysterically. You're throwing her out on the street while she's pregnant. She's pregnant with your child, I replied, not stepping back. She's your problem now. Brother scoffed, his face twisting into a nasty sneer. You don't know that for sure. And even if it is, you're the husband. Under state law, you're presumed the father. You're legally on the hook for child support, and she's taking half the house. You can't just abandon your responsibilities because your ego is bruised. Step up and be a man. Provide for your family. He was just as insanely entitled as she was. They truly believed they had me cornered by biology and the legal system. They thought they could betray me, mock me behind my back, and then legally force me to fund their lives. You should really consult a lawyer before you start quoting state law, I said, my voice completely deadpan. Because right now, you are trespassing on my property. You have exactly 10 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police and have you dragged out in handcuffs. He tried to hold my gaze to assert some kind of dominance, but he cracked. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I didn't wait for them to make the next move. By Monday morning, I was sitting in the office of lawyer, a highly aggressive family law attorney known for dismantling entitled spouses. I laid out the medical diagnosis, the camera footage, the phone records, and the bank statements. Lawyer nodded, taking notes. In our state, a child born during the marriage is legally presumed to be yours. However, this presumption is rebuttable. We will immediately file a petition to disestablish paternity alongside the divorce filing, using the doctor's diagnosis as preliminary evidence. To completely seal the deal before the birth, we will motion the court to compel a non-invasive prenatal paternity test, or NIPT, for brother. It can be done safely during pregnancy through a simple blood draw. As for the house, you bought it prior to the marriage. Assuming you didn't add her to the deed or use marital funds to pay the mortgage in a way that commingled assets, it remains separate property. Wife and brother fought back dirty. Wife hired a lawyer who filed a motion for temporary spousal support, claiming she was destitute, unable to work due to a high-risk pregnancy, and accustomed to a certain standard of living. She also demanded a $20,000 retainer fee for her legal costs to be paid by me. They thought they could bleed me dry through legal fees before we even got to a settlement. But they forgot what I do for a living. During the discovery phase, both parties must exchange financial documents. Wife's lawyer submitted her bank statements, showing zero assets. But I knew her spending habits. I spent a week digging through our old joint credit card statements, tracing every transfer, every app payment, every ATM withdrawal over the last 2 years. I found a recurring pattern of transfers to a payment account I didn't recognize. I subpoenaed the records for that account. It belonged to an LLC registered in brother's name. Wife hadn't just been sleeping with brother. She had been systematically siphoning marital funds, my bonuses, my commissions, into brother's fake consulting business for over 18 months. The total was north of $64,000. In U.S. divorce law, this is called dissipation of marital assets, or marital waste. When one spouse intentionally squanders or hides marital funds for non-marital purposes, the court can penalize them severely, often awarding the wronged spouse a disproportionate share of the remaining estate to make them whole. I brought this to lawyer. He smiled this cold, predatory smile. "We don't show this to them yet," he advised. "We let them keep pushing for alimony. We let her sign her financial affidavits swearing she has disclosed all assets. Once she perjures herself on paper, we trap them in mediation." For 2 months, I played the stressed, overwhelmed husband. I let wife's lawyer send aggressive, demanding emails. I let brother gloat on social media about stepping up when others fail. I remained silent, meticulously building a fortress of irrefutable evidence. Meanwhile, the court granted our motion for the NIPP test, and brother was legally compelled to submit a DNA sample. Finally, the court ordered us into mediation to attempt a settlement before going to trial. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Mediation took place in a neutral conference room. Wife sat across from me, heavily pregnant, exuding arrogant confidence. Her lawyer opened the session with a ridiculous list of demands. He wanted $4,000 a month in permanent alimony, half the equity in my premarital home, and a refusal to agree to the paternity disestablishment unless I paid a lump sum of $50,000. My lawyer let him finish. Then, without a single word, he opened his briefcase and slid 3 separate manila folders across the polished wood table. Folder 1, my lawyer stated, contains my client's irreversible infertility diagnosis, alongside the court-ordered prenatal DNA test results we received yesterday. Brother is a 99.9% match. The state will be disestablishing my client's paternity today. He owes 0 child support. Wife's lawyer frowned, opening the first folder. Wife shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Folder 2, my lawyer continued, contains sworn financial affidavits signed by your client, stating under penalty of perjury that she possesses no other assets or income. She doesn't, her lawyer argued defensively. Folder 3, my lawyer said, his voice dropping to a lethal calm, contains forensic accounting reports tracing exactly $64,300 of marital funds directly from her client to a fraudulent LLC owned by brother. This constitutes severe dissipation of marital assets and fraud. Furthermore, because your client signed an affidavit hiding this, she has committed perjury. We have every single wire transfer, app payment, and bank receipt. It's a paper trail a mile long. The silence in the room was absolute gold. You could hear a pin drop. Wife's lawyer stopped breathing for a second. He aggressively flipped through the bank traces, the LLC registration documents, and the transaction logs. He realized instantly that his client had lied to him, weaponized his time, and exposed herself, and potentially him, to severe sanctions from the judge. He closed the folder, took a deep breath, turned to wife, and asked through gritted teeth, "Is this true? Did you hide these funds?" Wife panicked. Her arrogant posture completely collapsed. Her face flushed bright red, and she immediately tried to deflect the blame. "Brother told me to do it. He said we needed a nest egg for the baby because my husband was too controlling with money. He said it was just a smart precaution. It was brother's idea. I didn't know it was illegal." In her sheer desperation to save herself, she confessed on the record, in front of both lawyers, to conspiring to steal marital funds. My lawyer leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "We are prepared to take this to trial. We are also prepared to hand these forensic reports over to the district attorney for potential fraud charges." The mediation ended 20 minutes later. I did not budge a single inch on any of my terms. With the massive threat of a civil lawsuit for fraud and potential criminal charges for perjury hanging over her head, wife's lawyer took her into the hallway. When they came back, she looked completely broken.
Her lawyer forced her to
Sign an absolute walkaway agreement. She waived all rights to alimony. She waived all claims to my house, my savings, and my retirement accounts. She walked out of that marriage with exactly what she brought into it. Absolutely nothing. But the revenge didn't stop there. Once the divorce was finalized, lawyer filed a civil suit against Brothers LLC for the stolen $64,300. When Brothers' own wife received the legal notice outlining the affair and the stolen money, she filed for divorce, kicked him out of their house, and demanded full custody of their existing children. Brother and wife were left with no money, no homes, a mountain of legal debt, and a child to raise in a cramped, rented apartment. They tried to play a rigged game of entitlement, but they forgot they were playing against someone who audits liars for a living. I sold the house, took the promotion in Chicago, and started fresh. I kept my money, my career, and my peace of mind. If you want to learn how to expertly install hidden cameras before your entitled spouse tries to frame you for a crime, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.